staff, and even, oh, thank you for hitting recording there.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say I'm recording now, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marty. We are now recording. So yeah, again, thanks, commissioners, for joining us. And we have our staff here. We do have some members of the public, to include some applicants who have jumped in on the study session in case you have questions. So Chair Ontiveros, I will kick this off with staff going through all of the cases that will be on, or that we anticipate being on, your public hearing agenda next month, July 28th. We have 5 of them. So we are going to try to get through these pretty quick because we also did want to talk to you about some long range planning initiatives as well. So we're going to kick off here with zone change, the first item on your study session agenda, zone change 2104, along with subdivision 2107. This would be a change of zoning regulations in the PC plan community zone. This is in Belmont, where CH 10,000 zoning applies. So for all practical purposes, this is commercial heavy zoning, and the applicant's requesting a zone change to RM, residential multifamily, 10 units per acre. Bob is managing this case. He's already got his screen share. So go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Jess. Good evening, commissioners. I'm glad my screen is sharing accurately. It wasn't before. Anyway, this is going to be a familiar area for you. To the east, to the left of your screen is the pilot truck stop. And then right next to that, you'll be familiar probably with the water tanks here. Utility source has a water standpipe right here, and these water tanks and a lot of the infrastructure for the water in the Belmont area. And that would go along with this lot next door. That is also in the CH 10,000 zone, where it has CH 10,000 standards applied to the PC zone. And these 2 lots are integrated together to create this subdivision. You can see Brannigan Road goes right by here. So I'll go ahead and show you, first of all, the master development plan. I won't probably show you the preliminary plat because it's not as important, but this is the master development plan. It is a plan for 84 unit duplex development. And let me move some stuff out of the way here. So you can see each of these, all these are duplex lots. They share a 0 lot line, boundary line right here in the middle. And the sidewalks are around this area in the middle. Sidewalks are provided on one side of the development. This is these lots are back up to this open space, which is a private park. This whole development is private. The streets are private, as you've become used to with subdivisions. But also they have requested to make this a gated community. And of course, one of the reasons for that is that pilot truck stop is right next door. If you go into the subdivision, there's really no place to go unless, there's no outlet anywhere. So unless you're a guest or a resident here, you don't really need to be here. So staff concurs with that idea that it be a gated community. They are showing a trail in front of the subdivision along with some landscaping. This is kind of an interesting story in that staff had asked them to show a trail up here, but as the Belmont area plan got passed, it shows a trail at the back. So on their preliminary plat, they are showing that. We are still getting some corrections back from them. And the master development plan will also show this 8-foot standard path at the back of the subdivision. And I've also asked them to make connections to that path in these 2 locations here so that residents can get out. The path in the front, this one is actually very useful because you can take it back and connect to the emergency access road. This is the emergency access road. So they do have 2 accesses as is required. And then you can walk right up to the pilot station that way. This is the property line that's common with the pilot stations. So what they're proposing is a 7-foot fence or some type of wall back here. I've asked them to show me details about what that is going to be as well, along with landscaping as a buffer. One of the good things about this, as you know, the pilot station can be pretty noisy. There are trucks coming through here, but actually when the noise is above the level of the subdivision, you tend to hear it a lot less. So that should help with this development a little bit. Although I don't say that it will be totally quiet there. Anyway, these two uses are integrated together, this utility use with the tanks, and some of these lots are into that lot, and then there are like a couple of wells. There's a well here, I believe, a well here, and a well here. So there are some wells proposed on the site too, that may be existing. So that's how they kind of integrate all of these two properties together for this new master development plan, this new subdivision. And I think that's about it. I'll let you, I'll answer any questions you might have at this point. Does the commission have any questions?
Mr. Short, this is Chair Ontiveros. I'm wondering if the applicant has done their citizens participation plan yet, and if so, how are the residents in the community feeling about that?
I can let, by the way, the applicant is here and present. And I can let them talk about that, but I just recently read, just a few minutes ago, I read the citizen participation report. It looked like about 11 people showed up, and they didn't seem to have a lot of concerns according to the report, but I can also let the applicant answer that if you would like.
Okay, if the applicant wants to add anything on to that, he can, state his name and address for the record, and certainly can advise us.
Hello, my name is Christian Talbot. I'm filling in for the applicant today, Tim Campbell. We did have the participation study. We had, as they said, it was about 11 people or so. The only person that really had a question was another landowner to the west of us, and they gave us their full blessing. So there was not any other comments from the citizens around.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Talbot. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
But also
Okay,
I also wanted to show you, excuse me, Commissioner, Madam Chair, this picture of the housing that they're proposing, just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, actually, I didn't have anything further. I was going to let you know that I was done and was turning it back over to you, Mr. Short. So you continue on.
Okay. Does anyone else, any other commissioners have questions about this development or this zone change?
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, hearing none, we'll jump to our next case on the agenda. And that would be a request for a zone change from G, general zone, to MHP, manufactured home park. This would be on 2 parcels for a total of 24 acres. And just to the east of where Bob was just showing you, this is east of Belmont, so not within the Belmont area plan, but just on the north side of I-40, actually abutting I-40 near Camp Navajo and the Naval Observatory. And Zach's managing this case. So thanks for sharing your screen, Zach, and go ahead.
Thanks, Jess. Good evening, commissioners. So we have here a request to go from the general zone to the MHP zone. As Jess said, we're east of Belmont. So here's Belmont, here's Camp Navajo. We are right here. And actually there's an access road called Beaton's East that kind of comes in from Belmont, directly adjacent to the ADOT right of way, and comes into the parcel here. There are 2 parcels actually. So this parcel and this parcel here, and here's the road. So what the applicant is looking to do, and by the way, the applicant and the applicant's representatives are with us today if you have any questions. But they're looking to do on these 24 acres, 24 units of tiny homes. So they would be basically RVs that are on a trailer, and they would have jack stands to what they're calling semi-permanently put them on the property. The MHP zone does allow for people to do an RV as a permanent residence, so it's something that is allowable in the zone. The units would be intended for long-term or short-term use. They would have full hookups for electricity and wastewater. Water would be hauled. The homes would be 200 to 350 square feet. And so I think they're going with a local company, Uncharted Tiny Homes, apparently. So it might look similar to this. This isn't what the applicant submitted. I found this on the internet, but these were part of the applicant's submittal right here. There's your typical tiny homes with the loft. Let me show the site plan. So again, access here from Beaton's East Road. They would be asking for a paving waiver to do compacted aggregate base instead, with a 26-foot wide roadway there. So I think the paving waiver is probably for this area something that seems acceptable and a normal type of thing to do. They do want to work with our sustainable building program to do rainwater harvesting and possibly other things they might work with the sustainable building program with. They're showing septics over in this area for the units. And they do show a number of, I think there's a pickleball court up here and a few sort of recreational amenities, including this dog park here. Those are typically conditional uses in the MHP zone, but we do have, it says that recreational amenities on a plat are something that is permitted by right. So we'll look into whether or not we can kind of fold that into this approval here. So we'll look into that. I don't have the exact square footage of all of their different lots, so it will stay as one parcel, and they're not going to, possibly in the future, they would try to subdivide that, and going above 5 lots, that's something that would require doing a full subdivision case. But for now, what they're looking at doing is just leasing these different lots here. I don't have the exact square footages of each of these lots, and I'm asking that the applicants add that to the site plan. But the narrative says that they'll all be at least 5,000 square feet, which is the minimum for the MHP zone. And so I think that that's all I really had on it, but I'm happy to take any comments or questions on that from the commission.
I got a question, Zach.
Sure.
For you or the applicant, this actually is very exciting, I think. So will people be able to, will they rent the space and the hookups and bring in their own tiny home, or will the tiny homes be provided by the development? Like, as you said, partnering with that company, and then it's a rental, or can they buy, like, what are the ownership opportunities in this, or is it part ownership, part rental, or all rental?
Commissioner Williams, my understanding from the narrative is that the owner would kind of supply these, but I'll let the applicant speak to that if you'd like.
Sure.
Sure. This is Ryan Scott, the applicant. Thanks for your time. We were looking to offer each option, whether they would rent from us, or there's a lot of interest to buy the homes and bring them themselves. And so we're open to both.
Cool. I like that. I like having more options for people.
Did we have any other questions or comments from the commission? Okay, guess not, Jess. Well,
Hearing none.
You know
Thank
what?
you.
I saw Commissioner Walters has his hand up. Commissioner Walters, do you have a question?
I do. I'm a little concerned about the access to this site. There's dirt road leading from A1 Mountain up to it and from Belmont down to it. The possibility of fire services and ambulance, that kind of stuff in the wintertime when that road's bad, I'd like some assurance of how that's going to be maintained and brought up to a standard that will be good enough for a fire truck.
Thanks, Commissioner Walters. I actually I had a note here to talk about that. So they have already been, the applicants and the applicants' representatives have already been in discussion with Ponderosa. Of course, they're located in Belmont, not too far away here, about getting the services. I think that's, it's something where the fire district might be interested in having this property annexed into, but it's something that's, you know, an option could possibly be that they just get a subscription service to it. I did see in the narrative that they are going to be placing a 50,000 gallon water storage tank on the property for fire response. And as far as the roadway is concerned, it is a county maintained road. I'm not sure to which level that it is maintained to or what happens in the winter, but certainly it's something where staff could recommend a condition where they have some kind of maintenance agreements, you know, year round for how they would maintain it.
Thank you. I think it needs to be addressed at a minimum.
Absolutely. We'll have maintenance agreements in there.
Hey, Zach, we
And-
can confirm if it's county maintained, if it's in the county inventory for maintenance, then the county is maintaining it, meaning they not only maintain the roadway year round to the county standard for trafficability, they also do the plowing.
Thanks, Jess. Yeah, I definitely, I want to look more into that, and it'll be analyzed after I have a discussion with Public Works about how's the maintenance work and all that sort of thing. But I think you're right. It should be probably pretty good if it's a county maintained road.
Okay. Thanks, Commissioner Walters. And just for everyone's edification, per the EDCM, the county's engineering, design, and construction manual, when this project goes to develop, they'd be required to get an encroachment permit because they would be connecting to a county maintained road. That encroachment permit process, very similar to like a building permit process, is where the traffic impact statement or analysis is required at that point, and the infrastructure improvements that are required will fall on the developer, and that would be required whether this was a zone change or not. If this was a permit, if this already had the zoning, it would still be required at the time they go to get the encroachment permit.
Thanks for that, Jess. I did see a traffic statement drafted up in the submittals, so we'll be looking through all those different aspects.
All right. Any other questions, Chairman Taveras or commissioners of Zach?
Mr. McNeely, I'm not seeing any, so let's go ahead and move on to number 3.
Okay, thank you. So Chairman Taveras, commissioners, number 3 will be an 80-meter Met Tower. This is out southwest of Valley, and Kelly Bingham, our new planner, who many of you all have met, is going to be managing this case, and Kelly's going to be managing the last one, item 5 on the agenda. So we'll let her just kind of hit both of these one after the other. So Kelly, you could go ahead and start with item number 3, CUP 20033.
Good evening, commissioners. CUP 2133 is going to be a modification of an existing CUP. They would like to add one 80-meter tower. That's 263 feet. And because it's over 200 feet, they're going to be adding a red blinking light to the top of it. And they're working with the FAA for a permit for that. I'll show you a map here. They already have 6 existing towers on the site. They would just like to add another one. So you can see this is number 7 with the red dot. Does any of the commissioners have any questions about this one?
This is Commissioner Walters. What's the height of the other towers?
Thank you, Commissioner Walters. The height of the other towers are 60 meters. That's about 197 feet.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the commission before I move on to the next one? Hearing none, I'll move on to CUP 2142. This one is for the Cowgirl Energy Project. It's for the installation of four 60-meter Met towers. These are going to be located about 5 miles northwest of Valley. I'll show you on the map here, with access coming from the 64. Are there any questions from the commission on this one? I will go ahead and add that this one will be visible from the Grand Canyon Railway. It's about 1.5 miles west of tower number 2. So that one will likely be visible, and the nearest residence to this one is 2.5 miles east of number 1. Are there any further questions from the commission on either of these Met towers? Hearing none, I will move.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Ontiveros. Jess, if it's okay, Mr. McNeely, I will also talk about CUP 2137. It's an
Absolutely, go ahead.
administrative. Thank you. This is an administrative renewal of High Country Fire and Rescue CUP for their fire station. Were there any questions or concerns from the commission on this one?
All right, thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
So thanks, commissioners, for making it easy on Kelly on her first study session, and we look forward to our newest planner, member of our team, giving you presentations at next month's public hearing. So Chair Ontiveros, the only other public hearing agenda item that we wanted to run past you this evening would be CUP 2139, and that's request for a conditional use permit for an RV park and campground on 16 acres in the parks area. And I'm actually going to take this case. I'm going to share my screen right now if I can successfully do so. Everybody seeing my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
All right. Well, Commissioners, Chair Ontiveros, this is, if you're familiar with this area, we are right at the northwest corner of I-40 and Parks Road. Right here, we have the Texaco that's still in operation. We have the Rack and Bowl restaurant, which is currently sitting shuttered. And to the west of that commercial zoning is a G-zone parcel many of you are probably familiar with that historically did have an RV park on this property via a conditional use permit. So the applicant, who I believe is with us this evening, if you have any questions, is proposing essentially a mixed-use development, which they would be reopening the Rack and Bowl restaurant. I think some of the neighbors are in support of that idea. And they would reestablish the RV park where one traditionally was located. They would be putting in all new infrastructure for this RV park. Their narrative currently has them at 80 total RV spaces for just nightly RV rentals, people who would pull in off the highway with their own RV. An additional 10 RVs that would stay on the site. And you all have seen this concept before where somebody puts perhaps a restored vintage RV or just some other permanent RV on their site, and then they rent it out on a nightly basis to someone who doesn't have their own RV. They would also include a tent campsite in this area right here. The applicant and their designers have demonstrated a on-site wastewater system the leach field system, for which would be here on the south, and stormwater detention that you see at the southeast corner and all along the west side. That actually does work well for, just gravity feed for their systems, and it does work well for buffer and retaining a lot of trees on the site. The applicants indicate that they intend to retain as many of the trees as possible throughout the entire RV site to keep it nicely wooded, and using retained native trees on the site to count for their landscape plan. And they do not intend to ask for a waiver of any of the landscaping standards. They also indicate in their narrative a dark sky compatible lighting plan that would have minimal lighting. Other than that, a couple amenities here in the center. I believe some pickleball courts and some shower houses and dumpsters throughout the site. The applicant did do a trip generation statement that showed, if memory serves me right, pretty low number, I think 13 total trips in the peak hour on mornings for this site. Old Route 66, where this site would have access from, is a county maintained road. So the applicant will be required to get an encroachment permit per the EDCM from the county, and their encroachment permit will require either a TIA or TIS, depending on what the thresholds come out for their traffic counts on their estimates, and any infrastructure that's required based on their TIA or the TIS, the applicant will be responsible for constructing. The applicant did do a neighborhood meeting, citizen participation plan. Generally speaking, their citizen participation report indicates that most people in the immediate area are supportive of the idea, and that most people in the area completely understand that the restaurant will not really be viable as their neighborhood restaurant without the RV park. So a historic use on the site, just reestablishing the historic use. And as a reminder, the zoning ordinance does allow a conditional use permit for an RV park and a host of other commercial uses at locations like this in the G zone when they're within 500 feet of an interchange. So that's why the applicant is able to pursue this RV park with a conditional use permit as opposed to needing a zone change. So with that, are there any questions of the commissioners? All right.
I'm not seeing it, Mr. McNeely.
All right. Well, hearing none, staff will obviously be looking detailed through the parks area plan. The applicant has submitted their narrative from their perspective, how they meet the policies of the parks area plan, and we'll look forward to bringing this to you next month. So I will stop sharing my screen, and let's see, Sharon Tavares, I'm going to go ahead and share my agenda with you all, so we can use that as our guide to run us the rest of the way through your study session. Well, we did a pretty good job of that. We're not even to 5 p.m. yet, and we got through 5 cases. So I'm stepping it up again next month with a higher volume of cases on your public hearing agenda. By the way, Chair Tavares, I see that John Ruggles has joined us. So I believe we now have a quorum, and I was just chatting with Jay, our director, and Jay is resending the invite to Commissioner Dennis Baca, who we're hoping to introduce you all to this evening, for those of you who haven't met him. So Chair Tavares, if it's okay with you, I'll go into our department update.
Yes, please do, Mr. McNeely.
Okay. Item number 1 here, we continue to recruit for a compliance manager, also known as a code enforcement manager. We've been pretty challenged with keeping this position full. We have trained some great people who are still with the county in other positions that they've been promoted up into. So this position has been empty for quite a while, and several of us are trying to cover the bases on the code enforcement. We certainly have had no shortage of code enforcement requests recently. Hoping to get that filled within the next month or so. And as we've been letting you know all the way through the COVID pandemic, that the county is continuing to assess and make operational decisions with respect to COVID-19. I want to let you know that we are now in phase 2 operations, and our lobby is open to the public. We've had foot traffic coming in the lobby, not a lot. Many of our customers have gotten used to all of our online services, and between phone and online, we can generally take care of anything that someone needs taken care of. But we are available with open doors in our lobby. So if any of you are in the neighborhood, feel free to walk on in, and we'd love to chat with you and let you see how we're set up. Pretty much the same as we always were. We just now have the great plexiglass shields on our counters. Like we've been letting you know every month, item number 3 here, the Donny Park Timberline Fernwood Area Plan update is continuing. And of course, Commissioner Clifford and Ruggles are on that committee. The committee is in the process of wrapping up. They're very close to the end of their goals and policies. And so we're now looking at their public outreach plan. And Melissa, did you have anything else you'd like to add for the DPTF area plan update? And do any of the commissioners have any questions?
Mr. McNeely, this is Chair Aunt Taveras. And before we go on to number 3, on item number 2, on my agenda, it says county management indicates that the county is not yet holding in-person public hearings.
Yes.
Can you, do you know why that is?
So absolutely, and I appreciate you going back to that one. I apologize, I didn't open up for, didn't give the opportunity there for questions following that one. So in conjunction with the legal staff and really with the Board of Supervisors and county management, the discussion of holding public hearings has acknowledged that the county does not want to encourage full rooms of people yet. And as a matter of fact, the county does have posted on all of our public spaces what the occupancy of the rooms are. So if y'all remember the chambers that you used to meet in, that's relatively tight quarters, elbow to elbow, and the county would not want to open that up completely to a full room at this point in time. It's marked for whatever capacity. I'm sure there's a sign on the door right now as we speak saying what they expect the capacity of that room to be. So as a public hearing for either the Planning and Zoning Commission hearings or the Board of Supervisor hearings, and being that these are public hearings advertised and notified, the county is choosing to not have a system of holding a public hearing, but then trying to limit how many people are in the room. We would fear holding the public hearing, having a limit of how many people are in the room, having public show up to a hearing and then get turned away at the door or asked to wait for their item. And that could get tough for someone who's driven, a long ways across the county, but can't get into the public hearing, but doesn't have time to then jump online and get online. So the solution that our county, as many public agencies, is working towards is what we're all referring to as hybrid meetings, where we can hold meetings where people can be present in person or online, just as we're conducting this meeting right now. And until that technology is in place, the county is still trying to hold off on filling rooms. And that's what we heard with our last all hands meeting with the county manager, Steve Peru. Does that answer your question, Chair Navarro? Is there anything else I can try to help with on that?
No, that does answer the question, but I want to follow up and ask, when do they see this opening up? You know what I mean, for
Right.
the hybrid meetings, including some in person.
Right, absolutely. So the board chambers are currently in the process of getting technology updates. I know city council for City of Flagstaff is going through the exact same process right now as well. We may be all fighting for the same contractors to try to upgrade our facilities in this way. We don't have a date yet. We are in the process of actively making those technology updates. I hope by next month to have a better answer for you as to an anticipated date.
If I
Okay.
might interject a little bit. I think they are going to have some challenges in securing installation for that, because I know from experience through the university that we are having a hard time getting our regular teams that we bring in from Phoenix for our classroom renovations, for example, because of the CARES Act money. Every single school and university is upgrading their infrastructure for their audio video equipment. So that is one of the challenges that lie ahead in getting the people in who are qualified to do the installations.
Thank you for that inside information there,
Yeah.
Commissioner Burton. That's actually really good information. Yeah.
It is good information, and with that information, it seems that this is going to be that public hearings are going to continue to be delayed, seemingly indefinitely.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess what I'm wondering is what is the why is the county limiting the amount of people in the rooms?
That's a good question, Chair Ontiveros. I can tell you, I asked that question very specifically our last all hands meeting, and we from our staff have continued to try to relay to the Board of Supervisors and county management, hey, we get asked every month at the Planning and Zoning Commission when we're going to open back up to meetings, and the exact response that we got, which I fully understand, have complete respect for, is that the county management and I'm sure that's with input from the board, is not yet ready to see full packed rooms of people, and that's why they are still holding off on holding in-person public hearings.
Okay, and so are they getting their guidance from CDC? You know, like,
Right.
I guess what I'm really trying to figure out here is what's going on, because I don't know of any other place that's not open.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of any place, Mr. McNeely, that is not open for the public to interact, go to, shop at? You can go to theaters. I mean, you can go everywhere. And so I get what you're saying, but the more I drill down on trying to get a real answer as to why public hearings cannot be held, I'm getting it's kind of the opinion of county management that they just don't want to fill the room. And then when I ask, well, what are they basing that decision on, and why don't they want to fill the room? Mm-hmm. I don't feel I'm getting an answer.
I completely understand, and I completely concur with you. And we have our health department, and as much as I would like to punt this ball up the chain, so to speak, above my pay grade, because I obviously I am not in the position of being able to make these calls or being able to point to where, is it CDC, is our own health department, where are we getting this criteria, and how can we give some assurance of what the steps will be to open back up to public hearings.
Right, and I do understand that, but this has been going on now for several months. Like I honestly, I've been letting this go now for several months because everything is open. We can go
Right.
see Phoenix Suns games. I cannot think of anywhere we cannot go except a public hearing in our county. And I think that county leadership needs to do just that. I think that we need to be open for our community. I think we need to be open for public hearings for the residents. We have a lot of elderly people. I know that I've heard some chatter that they just don't know how to participate. They can't participate because they don't understand the tech world that this involves. But the one thing they can do is they know how to get in their car and they know how to drive down there and they know how to give input. And so I think I'm going to be pretty strong on my comments here that I don't believe that I have been given a real answer as to why we cannot open up for public hearings. And I would like, I'm going to really drill down on that and I'm going to press it. And I'm going to say, I would like a real reason. Is it guidance from the CDC? Is it like, what is it? I don't know what it is, but this procrastination is not good for the residents and for the community. And I think it's time that some change happens here. Again, it just doesn't look good when everything else is open. We can participate in sports, recreation, shopping, literally anything except involvement in our community government. And I don't think that speaks well and reflects good on the community, on the county leadership. I will leave it at that, but I think that I think you're understanding what I'm saying. And just my comments are not directed at you because I realize you're the middleman here. You're just the guy, trying to give some direction. So please do not think that these comments are directed to you, but I think that it is time for the county to open up to the community because literally every place else is open to the community. So with that, I will be silent now.
I sincerely appreciate that direction, Chair Ontiveros. And we will ensure, the beauty of this meeting is it's recorded, we can ensure word for word that we pass that on. And I certainly appreciate and understand your perspective on this, and very good questions. And you certainly deserve, you and the community deserve answers to those questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, it's not just me that deserves an answer. It is this commission that deserves an answer. It is members of the community that deserve answers, that pay their taxes. So it's time to get a real answer. So, but thank you. And I know it's going to be coming, and I know we're going to have a real answer. I'm going to be optimistic here. Are we going to be having a public hearing next month in July, do you think? Or do you think we'll be via Zoom still?
So, Chair Ontiveros, especially knowing that the board is on their break for the month of July, and if the board was going to be involved in that decision at all, I think that window is pretty much closed, or maybe closed. So I would anticipate that that July, if I were to guess, if I were a betting person, my bet would be that we will not hold a public hearing in July. However, there's always some probability that decision could get made, and that could change between now and then.
Okay, and Mr. McNeely, actually what you said right now leads to a good question. Who is involved in this decision-making project or decision? Like, who are the decision makers? Can you give us names, positions? Like, who is the one that is making the decision to keep the county closed to public hearings?
Chair Ontiveros, I really appreciate that question, and that's a good question. And that may be something that is in a document available to us. I don't have that at my disposal right now. So instead of risking speculating on an incorrect answer, I certainly know that the last time this was discussed was at a county, what we call an all hands meeting, which is a staff meeting with the county manager. That was the last time this was discussed to include this exact question. I can only relay what we heard from the county manager in that meeting. To answer
Right.
your exact question, I think I would definitely want to, and I can certainly assist with that. I would definitely want to review the county's reopening plan on is that documented as to your exact question, which is a very good question that I appreciate. Who is the decision maker here for opening up public hearings?
Okay. Mr. McNeely, I'm gonna go ahead and let it go because I think I've made my point. So I think moving on, we were on number 3, and I believe that you had invited Ms. Shaw, to offer any comments.
Mr. McNeely, before we go there, I just want to say I stand with Commissioner Ontiveros on this. As vice chair of this commission, I echo her comments.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the emphasis, and I appreciate the direction to staff, and that helps us with some very clear words there. And I appreciate the showing the leadership with asking for very exact answers, and that helps us ask for those answers.
Okay.
Okay, if there's nothing else on item 2, we'll jump into item 3. And with that, seeing we've got about 14 minutes left in your study session, we will try to move through these. I know we have Melissa Shaw, Long Range Planner, with us. So from the commissioners, and particularly from Commissioners Ruggles and Clifford, who are on the DPTF Area Plan Committee, are there any questions or comments? And Melissa, did you have anything that you wanted to pass on the Stony Park Timberline Fernwood Area Plan update?
Thanks, Jess. Just to mention that the next meeting is actually next Thursday, July 8th. A week from tomorrow.
Okay. A week. So is that violating the rule of the second Thursday of the month, or is that the first? Is that the first Thursday?
That's the second Thursday.
That is the second, yes, because tomorrow is the first.
Yes.
Thursday. All right. Okay.
Jess,
Thanks.
I would just like to add one thing to this. I believe, having been to all of the meetings and seeing how they have worked, I think Melissa needs hazardous duty pay in addition to her regular paycheck.
Thanks, Commissioner Ruggles. That's funny.
She fully deserves it.
Absolutely. And as you would know, Commissioner Ruggles, when you get hazardous duty pay, it's tax-free.
Hey, even better. And I realize I've been a little bit of the problem, but then again, you have to speak up sometimes to keep a few things on track. So enough said.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Well, if there's no other questions on...
No, this is Chair Ontiveros, and I don't have any questions. I'm just kind of chuckling here, thinking if someone is thinking someone should get hazardous duty pay, there's got to be some kind of great story. But let's move on, Mr. McNeely. just keep moving. Yeah.
And with that, that's a good invitation for any of the commissioners who are not on that area plan committee, update committee, to join in. Actually, I thank Don, Commissioner Walters, for joining us one evening. Feel free to drop in. It is an active, great public process that you would observe, and you might observe some of the hazardous duty that John's talking about. Well, with that, the next couple of items are also Melissa's. So item 4, we continue being a partner in the Route 66 Brownfield EPA grant project. So if there's any questions on that, or the next item, item 5, on the staff assistance with the City of Flagstaff on their update to the Flagstaff Regional Plan. And well, maybe I'll go back to 4. Were there any questions on item number 4 on the Brownfields EPA grant? Okay, hearing none. Item 5. We did want to let you know and discuss with you and get your input on holding a joint City Council Planning and Zoning Commission study session next month at your July 28th study session. And we would be starting it half an hour early. And I believe from speaking with Melissa, it would be programmed for half an hour at 4 p.m. on July 28th. So any questions, any comments on holding a joint City of Flagstaff, Coconino County, P&Z Commission study session on the update to the Flagstaff Regional Plan?
I think that's a great idea. This is Commissioner Walters. I think that's a great idea, Mr. McNeely, so count me in.
I've got a question for you. It looks like it's on the last Wednesday of the month, which is a conflict with the P&Z Commission.
Great point. And so actually the logic was that I believe that is also the City of Flagstaff's Planning and Zoning Commission hearing date. So how we would envision this happening is we would do a 4 p.m. study session with you all and the and City P&Z Commission on the update to the Flagstaff Regional Plan for 30 minutes. And then at 4:30, that study session would close and you would go into your regular study session at 4:30 for the public hearing.
This is Melissa. If I could just mention something, I did just get a message from Sarah Dector at the city that they would want you to consider possibly starting this joint City County P&Z Commission study session at 3:30 to give a bit more time devoted to it, because there are some details that may take longer than a half an hour. So that's a question for the commission tonight.
Great. Thanks for bringing that up, Melissa.
Mr. McNeely? Yeah, Mr. McNeely, how long, if on the next agenda in the July meeting, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hearings. And I know it's really impossible because you just never know, what's going to happen. But what's your best guess on how long that meeting might go? The public hearing.
Sure. So the public hearing starting at 5:30 with those 5 cases. We all know famous last words.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Yeah, I would anticipate there's some probability of that going till 9 or 10 p.m.
Okay, so this is why I'm asking that question, because I do see some potential here in a couple of these cases. I do see some potential for a late night.
Yes.
And so you're thinking it could go to 9 to 10. If we start at 3:30, that makes for a really long evening. And I want to be sure. I'm going to let the other commissioners chime in on this because I do want everyone's input. But I can tell you that for me personally, by the time those meetings start going that late, I don't know. You just start getting a little foggy towards the end there. And the 4th item on the agenda, it could be one. I don't know that it would be, but I'm just thinking about public input from some of the previous ones. And I don't know, that could be a really long night.
Mm-hmm.
From 3:30 to possibly 9:30. I don't know. What do the other commissioners think?
This is Commissioner Walters. I agree with you. It could be a long night. The difficulty of scheduling this is the problem. And I'm all right with having another day added to this to have a couple of hours to spend on this regional plan. Having spent 4.5 years on the previous regional plan, I think this is a pretty important thing.
I know that was kind of my thinking is that I think this deserves some really good time and attention. Honestly, I'm going to tell you, I'll be okay either way. I'm going to defer to the other commissioners on this. I'll be okay either way. I'm just saying that sometimes can make for a very long night. And I'll just leave it at that, but whatever the other commissioners decide to do, I will adjust my schedule accordingly.
Well, I would like to say I'll go along with Chair Ontiveros on this one. I'm willing to stay as long as it takes, but then again, you've heard my opinion on it before. I don't expect to see the sun come up the next day, but second day, well, that would be a good way to do it too, as Commissioner Walter stated.
Yeah, either way, because I do think that this is really important. I think it's really important. So can Commissioner Burton, Commissioner Clifford, Commissioner Williams, is Commissioner Baca with us this evening?
I am
Is he-
not unless Commissioner Baca is on. Nope, I am not seeing a Dennis Baca.
Okay. You know what? See, the other commissioners, go ahead and give your opinion. Like I said, I'll go with what everyone wants to do. But we've only got 4 minutes left for the study session, so we're gonna have to start wrapping this up.
I'm inclined to prefer it on another day rather than trying to pile it all on together. But like you, I'll go along with whatever.
I would say
Okay.
the same that Tiana just said. I do think that the regional plan probably deserves more than an hour together. I mean, I think it would be a great opportunity if we had that scheduled at its own hour or hour and a half. But I can make some coffee and I can stay up. So
Yeah. Commissioner Clifford?
Commissioner Walters, I know you've been on this. How long would it take to get through this thoroughly so we get a real good understanding as to what is going on? Is it going to be able to be done in an hour, or should we do another day where we do a 2.5-hour meeting with the City of Flagstaff on this? So we're not pushing to go into our regular study session and P&Z meeting.
This is Vice Chair Walters. I think we really need to have a separate meeting. This is a very important thing for us. And oftentimes in the past, it's been kind of rammed down our throats. I think we need to set up a separate day and as you suggest, 2.5 hours or even more. You know, we need to really be a participant in this thing.
Yeah.
I agree.
I do. Mr. McNeely, if I can, because I know time's running short.
Sure.
It sounds like the commissioners, myself included, want to do a really good job at this. And we want to participate with the city staff on this. And could I ask you to reach out to the city scheduler, whoever that might be, and express our concerns that we're more interested in quality, and we would really like to spend some quality time with them. We've got an agenda that's probably going to be a long one that night, and we feel that we might be pushing it and not really giving them the time they need, or giving the regional plan the time it needs to do it right.
Absolutely, we can do that. And I see that Melissa has her hand raised. I imagine
Okay.
she has something to add about what the proposed content of that meeting would be. So go ahead, Melissa.
I thank you, Jess. Just very quickly, the intent was to focus in particular on the public participation plan portion of this, and it will involve multiple meetings with the planning commission. This happened to be a date when both the city and county planning commissions were meeting, and that's why the opportunity came up to meet jointly.
Okay.
Just to make that point, yeah.
Okay, so the topic would be very limited in just public participation.
Initially, but then we would anticipate additional study sessions, whether together or just with you on the regional plan update. But this is the beginning of the process, and we want to make sure that you are aware of the proposed public participation plan aspect, because that's a very large part of the process.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it is a very large part. You know what? I get that we're up against scheduling here. Like, I get that we're trying to get the city and the county to do that, or to meet together. Mr. McNeely, I'm gonna actually throw this one back on you, okay? You've heard the commission's concerns, and I thank you, Ms. Shaw, for kind of giving us the topic, because that is important. I'm going to kind of let you decide, because if we get into a situation where if we don't meet at the next meeting, then it's just going to be going on, and we're not going to have a chance to. Then go ahead and put it on there, okay? But if you could express to the city that we would like to maybe have some more joint meetings with them, because Flagstaff and Coconino County are very interrelated. And I think the conversation and the dialogue between these two entities, I think it would be really important and really good. So maybe we can start with, with one. But if you could, I think the commission, if I'm understanding everyone correctly, I think the commissioners would like to have a little more of this joint meeting time, with our counterpart in the city.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Well, Chair Ontiveros, I think I've got your guidance there. If go back to them that our commission sees this as a very important process and an important meeting to kick this off, particularly understanding the public participation plan or public outreach plan. And if this is the only time that works, so be it, knowing that this will be a limited time meeting, just for one introductions and one limited topic. But future meetings are desired and seen as very important.
Yes, and that is really accurate. Okay, Mr. McNeely, I've got a question for you, because it is 5:32 and the public hearing should have started 2 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you suggest we do? Because there is still 3 items left on the study session.
Sure.
Do we want to come back to that?
Absolutely. So, Chair Navarez, we do have your agenda scheduled. And as a matter of fact, I'm scrolling to it right now. I realize you can see what I have on.
I do see.
But we do have continuation. We have continuation of the study session following your public hearing this evening, so we can jump back into these items. The one thing that we definitely wanted to point out to y'all is that by your bylaws, we do need to vote on officers on the chair and vice chair next month. So that was really the one other thing we definitely wanted to get to, let you know about, and then Melissa can wrap up with a follow-up study session on the renewable energy ordinance as well.
Okay, all right, then why don't we break from now, and why don't we go into, it is 5:33 p.m. and so we are going to go ahead and start the public hearing. So Mr. McNeely, actually let me go ahead and read this, the meeting rules and procedures. Welcome to the June 30th, 2021 meeting of the Coconino County Planning and Zoning Commission. Cases will be heard in the order they appear on the agenda. Following the staff presentation, the applicant and/or the applicant's representative may address the commission. As an applicant, if you agree with the staff report and have no additional information, please feel free to keep your comments brief. Any relevant comments are welcome. Following the applicant's presentation, I will make a call to the public. If you wish to address this case, please state your name and address. We ask that your comments be limited to 3 minutes or less. Comments must be relevant to the case. Please address all comments to the commission, no matter how strongly you may feel about the case. All comments must be polite and courteous. After all interested public have spoken, the public comment portion will be closed. Discussion will then take place amongst commissioners. No additional public comments may be made unless requested by a commissioner. Decisions of this commission regarding any zone change or preliminary subdivision plat approval are referred to the Board of Supervisors as a recommendation. All other decisions are binding unless appealed to the Board of Supervisors. If you disagree with the Commission's decision, you have 15 days to appeal. Please contact staff at the Community Development Office for appeal procedures. Due to the virtual nature of this meeting, I will be doing a roll call vote of the commissioners to ensure accuracy for the record. Let's see, please mute your speakers and turn off your camera. And thank you for joining us this evening and actively participating in our county planning. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. McNeely, if you would lead us, please.
Absolutely. And thank you, Zach, for getting a flag up there. And thank you for letting us move forward with the Pledge of Allegiance. Sharon Taveros. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chair Taveros.
Thank you, Mr. McNeely. The second item on the agenda is the approval of the May 26, 2021 minutes. So if there are no corrections or modifications, I'll accept a motion and a second on this, please.
I'll make a motion for approval of the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Second that.
Okay, I think Commissioner Burton got in on that. So I've got a motion by Commissioner Walters and a second by Commissioner Burton for approval of the May 26, 2021 minutes as written. All of those in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Burton?
Aye.
Commissioner Clifford?
Aye.
Commissioner Walters?
Aye.
Commissioner Ruggles?
Aye.
This is Chair Ontiveros, and I also vote aye. The motion passes unanimously. The first item for the public hearings tonight is case number DRO-21-004.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you,
Chair,
Chair
members of the
Taveros.
commission.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you, Mr. Short. Go ahead.
Okay,
Very
thank
good.
you, Madam Chair. My name is Bob Short. I'm Principal Planner here at the county, and this case is the Belmont Best Western Design Review. The application in this case, the property owner is AVST Hospitality of Flagstaff, Arizona. The applicant is David Lindquist of Spokane Valley, Washington. The zoning is planned community with CH 10,000 standards applied in the Belmont area. Size of the property is 1.3 acres. And the request is design review for a hotel remodel. This is a vicinity map showing the subject property in Belmont. I have the pilot station highlighted there so you can tell exactly where it is. It's right next door to the pilot station in Belmont, right off of the exit right there. This is an aerial photo of showing the subject property. This is an existing hotel, of course. Right now it's a Days Inn. They would like to change it to a Best Western. Again, you can see the Pilot Travel Center next door. And you can see right here is where they're developing this new roundabout in Belmont. So they're taking some of the property from this hotel for that purpose. And I wanted to show you some pictures of the existing hotel just to show you what it looks like now. It is a Days Inn. This is from the south side facing Shadow Mountain Drive. And this is another picture of it. You can see that the siding here is in kind of a rough condition, and that would be replaced as part of this. Of course, it looks like it needs some upgrades. And I want to talk a little about the proposed development, basically convert the hotel into a Best Western, add a large porte-cochere on the front. They want to add an elevator on the east side or the back of the hotel. On the north side, they would like to add an enclosed swimming pool. They would, of course, change the signage to Best Western signage. They are proposing to add new lighting to repaint the hotel and also to add some stacked stone wainscoting. This is a site plan showing the proposed changes. This is the hotel as is now. And the applicant has put clouds around the areas where they would like to propose, where they're proposing changes to the hotel. This is the area up in this corner. It'd actually be the northeast corner. I turn this on its side so it'd fit better on the screen. This is the pool addition. This would be all new enclosed area for the pool. Over here would be the elevator. In the front is the porte-cochere. There are actually two sizes they've talked about. I'm not actually sure which ones they'll do at this point, but one stretches out into the parking area and the other one goes all the way across the parking area. So they could do either one of those. The style is going to remain about the same, so it doesn't really matter a lot in terms of the DRO. It won't look much different. And then they're also looking at changes to the parking lot. Possibly they are reducing the number of rooms in the hotel by quite a bit, so they would not require as much parking because of that. And these are the materials and colors that they're proposing for the hotel. This tan color up here is the base paint color. This cream color is the trim, and these are two accent colors. This one's a little bit more dominant. The grayish color here is a little more dominant than the orange color, which is an accent color. That is something that's allowed, that's cited in the design guidelines for the Belmont area plan, that accent colors can be brighter as long as they are accents. The shingles are existing and they're just basically matching the existing shingles on the site. And this is the stacked stone. It's called Sedona Gray, so it's kind of nice to have local reference to the stone. This is the front of the hotel. This is a rendering of the front, and you can see that the orange accent is every once in a while where the other colors are more dominant. You can see the porte-cochere on the side and the stacked stone around the wainscoting around the bottom. This is the top elevation is the back side of the hotel, or the east side. And I do want to point out that as part of their lighting plan, they show these little X's where they're proposing to have new lighting. You can see those around the hotel there. And I'll talk more about that later. This is another rendering of the front from a different angle. And this is the south side that would face Shadow Mountain Drive. And then on the end here, you can see the new pool room. And these elevations are basically the new pool room. That's the most significant addition to the building, besides, of course, the porte-cochere. So this is how it would look from the back side, from the east side. This is from the front, or the west side. And this is how it would look from the north, the least visible part of this new pool room. I want to talk a little about landscaping. The applicant, of course, Best Western has their own specifications and requirements for landscaping. And as you know, in the Flagstaff area right now, people are very busy with development, and the applicant was not able to find a landscape designer. So what they're doing at this point is just requesting that they be able to retain the existing landscaping on the site. And in the future, go ahead and change that up a little bit, add some new landscaping. There is a lot of really good existing landscaping on the site, and they should retain a lot of that, because since there are mature trees. In the DRO section of the zoning ordinance, it does allow for staff to approve landscaping as long as it's consistent with the DRO requirements. Normally the commission would do that, but in this case, I think this works as well. And I did want to show you some of that existing landscaping. This is in the front or out by Shadow Mountain Drive. You can see some of the larger trees that they have. Obviously a little bit rough because they are working on remodeling this and changing it up quite a bit. This is on the side, so there are some mature trees along the side of the hotel. Well, this is on the front, but along that front side. And so you can see there's some mature trees. Hopefully they will keep retaining those as much as possible. I want to talk a little about lighting. The applicant has provided a lighting plan. It does meet the standards for lighting zone 2. They are only proposing one type of lighting fixture. It is fully shielded, but because it's less than 2,500 lumens, it is not required to meet the low pressure sodium equivalent requirement, so it is not required to be amber LED. And because of that, as you probably know, we have had a standard condition, thanks in a large part to Commissioner Ruggles, that indicates that if lights are under that 2,500 lumens count, then we would like to see them at 2,700K. That's a little bit more off the blue spectrum and not quite as bright and glaring. So I have included that condition in this DRO again. And of course, in the end, they will need to have a lighting permit that is approved. I also want to mention that there are some existing lighting on the property. It hasn't been clear what would be removed and what would be retained, but in the end, they will have to, their lighting permit will have to meet the requirements and the lighting required for lighting zone 2. And I wanted to show you the specifications for that light. This is the light over here. You can see it. It's pretty small. I think, what was it? About 8 by 8 inches. And it would be in those locations I showed you on the building earlier. It is 2,400 lumens, so it is under that 2,500 lumen count. And as you can see at the bottom right down here, it says optional color temperatures. It does mention the 2,700K. So that is an available light for this particular fixture. This shows the signage proposed for the site. Look first at the one up here. This is the monument sign, also known as the freestanding sign. It is at the right height and size as required by the zoning ordinance. I did want you to note that, make sure that doesn't come out here. Let me go back. I did want you to note that the zoning ordinance, the sign ordinance does not allow this white area right here for a light that is internally lit. So the way that they have the applicants compensated for that is they're using this type of light. This is how it would look at night. It has diodes in here rather than being completely internally lit. It has diodes just showing the Best Western, these parts right here. This is a smaller sign that shows where the entrance to the hotel is. It would also have the same type of diodes in it as that. And this is the sign that would be on the front wall on the right side, on the south side. It would not be required to have the diodes. It works as is. We'll talk a little about DRO compliance. The applicant is proposing a natural stone, a stacked rock used as wainscoting. The colors are earth tones, gray, tan, and cream. There is orange color, but it is limited to accents. The lighting does conform to the ordinance, fully shielded, and it's for zone 2 lighting, at least as it's finally approved with the lighting permit in the end. And the signage, it uses the Best Western logo. Of course, you would expect that. It is a blue color, which could be considered a brighter color. But it does obviously reflect the sky, and it also complements the earth tones, and it could be considered to be an accent color. So that's kind of how we're looking at that in terms of meeting the design guidelines for the Belmont area plan. And with that, staff recommends the commission approve DRO 20004 with the conditions in the staff report. And with that, I'll take any questions from the commission.
Actually, I would like to say something about that. I don't have any questions for you, but I would definitely like to commend you for the way you've done the analysis and broken out what needs to be addressed, especially the lighting. covers the loophole very nicely. You've done a terrific job with that, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. I appreciate that. Any other questions from the commission?
Okay, Mr. Short, I am not seeing any. So at this time, I am going to ask if the applicant or the applicant's representative would like to address the commission this evening.
This is, yes, thank you. This is Dave Lindquist.
Mr. Lindquist,
Yes.
this is Chair Ontiveros, and thank you for joining us. If I could ask you, you have stated your name, but if I could also ask you to state your address for the record. And then I would also like to ask if you have read the staff report and if you agree with the conditions that are written in there.
My address is 1301 South Carnahan Hill, Spokane Valley, 992 Washington, 99212. And that was my question, is maybe I missed it somehow, but I haven't read the conditions of the staff report. I haven't seen them.
Oh, okay. So you do not have the staff report. You have not read the staff report.
I suspect
And you have not seen the conditions.
based on, and I commend also Bob on his presentation, I suspect that that's my fault, that I was copied on them and missed them.
Okay, so you don't know, okay, so the recommended conditions of approval of the DRO, there are 5 of them. Mr. Short, could you please pull that up on the screen so we can look at it together?
Yep, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
So I think, and of course I work for the owner, so Anand may have his own comments. I think number 1 is where Anand, can you unmute yourself? Are you good? Have you read through these?
Yes, I'm with you.
Have you read through these, Anand?
No, I haven't. I'm reading them right now as well.
Okay.
And now that we have Anand, it looks like Vashi joining us. Just to keep the record accurate, I would also like him to state his name and his address. So we've got a record of all of the participants at this hearing.
Sure, it's Anand Vashi, 1562 Arundel Place, Glendale, California, 91206.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vashi. Yes, and if you guys could take a moment, read those conditions, and then let's go from there. So let me know when you're done.
I don't know, Bob, if it's possible. It looks like there's comments below number 5 of the recommended conditions. Can you scroll down just a little bit?
That's just a recommendation.
Okay, gotcha.
So I can go over them quickly if that would help.
No, you don't need to for me.
Yeah, I'm okay as well.
Questions.
No, I don't. I'm okay with them as well.
I do have one question, and it's mostly a clarification that my understanding is that the pilot is the exterior signage, pole sign for pilot is much higher than more prominent than what we're allowed to have. And I don't think Anand and I are clear on why we aren't allowed to get, that same kind of exposure.
Mr. Short, could you address their question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wish I could. I'm not quite sure how that was approved, how the signage at the pilot was approved. It may be that it was very old, and I know the pilot has been there for a while. and it could predate the requirements. I'm guessing that that's my best thought actually, is that it's legal non-conforming signage that predates the current standards in the sign code, in the sign ordinance. So that's the best I can come up with. I don't know if any other planners would know anything, but I certainly have noticed that it is a, they do have more signage than would be allowed now currently by our code.
Yeah, Bob.
Mr.
This
McQueen, do you have any
Jess.
thoughts? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Chairman Ferris, and thank you, Bob. That would be that would certainly be the strong assumption at this point in time is that that taller sign is essentially legal nonconforming, was developed prior to our current sign standards, and per our ordinance, when new developments come in, new signs come in, we are required to keep them within the ordinance, the current ordinance limits.
So just to,
Would we be able to add a sign to the right below the pilot sign if they approve that on that same pole?
No, you would, this is Bob Short again. No, you would not be able to do that. That would, another thing in our sign regulations is that you can't have off-premise signs. So there isn't an allowance for off-premise signs or anything that doesn't meet our current standards for signage.
so Bob, Dave Lindquist again, what's the county's position on remove and replace? In other words, Anand, do you have a sign on your property now that's taller than what what was shown in the presentation tonight is?
No, we don't.
Okay.
It's about the same.
Yeah, the sign, you probably in one of the pictures, I could pull it up actually, and you can see this sign right here. That is their freestanding sign. And this is a fairly new hotel. It goes back about 20 years, I believe. I'm not quite sure. So it probably was required to meet the standards at that time. And that's why it is that tall. In fact, that might not even be the 15 feet.
Okay. Okay, thanks for clarifying. I don't have any questions about the conditions proposed.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Vashi, do you have any questions before we continue on?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to ask if there is anyone in the public that wishes to address the commission on this case this evening. If so, would you please use the raised hand button? I will look for the raised hand and then call your name. Okay, I am not seeing any raised hands, so I'm going to go ahead and close it to the public and open it up at commission discussion. And Commissioner Williams, you're up first tonight.
I can make the findings for this DRO, and I think it looks nice. Looks like an upgrade to me.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Burton?
I concur with Commissioner Williams. I do think this is a visual upgrade for sure. And I can make all the findings.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Clifford?
I think it's a good upgrade for the area and I can make the findings.
Okay, Commissioner Walters?
I too can make the findings for this. It looks nice. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ruggles?
I also can make the findings relative to this case, and I think this is a very good upgrade. Excellent design and colors. And one thing I would like to offer to everyone else on the commission is a little bit of clarification. Almost the entirety of the Belmont area plan is actually within the legally defined lighting zone 2. There is a small portion of it that is somewhat to the west that is outside of the 7 miles from the Naval Observatory. So just a little bit of clarification on that. Our county GIS mapping data is an excellent way to measure the distance. And I did check it for another case a while back, but just so that you know in the future. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ruggles, for that. That's helpful. This is Chair Ontiveros, and I'm just going to echo the comments my fellow commissioners have made. This is actually a very beautiful upgrade that you guys are doing. It looks really nice. I also can make the findings, and with that, I am going to ask if I can have a motion in a second, please.
Let's see, I think I can go ahead with a motion on this. I move for approval of DRO 21-004 with the conditions as stated.
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Ruggles and a second by Commissioner Williams for approval of DRO 21-004. All of those in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Burton?
Aye.
Commissioner Clifford?
Aye.
Commissioner Walters?
Aye.
Commissioner Ruggles?
Aye.
This is Chair Ontiveros, and I also vote aye. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. Thank you guys very much, and good luck on this remodel. The next item on the agenda is SUB 21-010.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is Zach Schwartz with the Planning Division of Community Development. This case is Walnut Creek Meadows Subdivision, case number SUB 21-010. The property owner is Foster G. Garland Trust of Flagstaff. The applicant is Ian Braun of CD&E, also local. Existing zoning is AR 2.5 and AR 5 zones. Subject property size is 151.56 acres. And this request is for a 50-lot subdivision with the current zoning minimums for the lots. So no zone changes requested, just the subdivision. Here's a vicinity map on your screen here. So we have Townsend Winona Road coming out of Flagstaff area. Here's Highway I-40. Heading north on Loop from Townsend Winona and to the east before you get to the industrial zoning to the north. We have
Hey, Zach.
Yeah,
we're still looking at you're not in slide presentation or presentation mode, and we were still looking at your title slide, so they weren't scrolling through yet. I think if memory serves me right, there's one more click you want to do there to get it to maximize the slide. And let's see, anyone else who remembers what that click is, feel free to chime in.
I appreciate that, Jess. It looks like, so I have 3 different screens right now, and so
great.
I think I'm not sharing the right screen. I think what I'll do,
you're sharing the correct one, and we're seeing your title slide. It's just in that mode where to the right of your title slide is the next slide, and this can work fine if that's what you're seeing in presentation mode, and you can scroll through it this way. And I think we're seeing your cursor as well, so you'll be able to point.
Hey, Zach, there is a display settings at the top of that screen. You should be able to swap displays.
Okay, let me try. I think I'm sharing my second of the 3 screens. If I scroll, perfect. Are you seeing the scrolling through?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we're seeing it perfect. Awesome.
Okay, apologize for that.
No problem.
Thanks for letting me know about that, though. Appreciate it. So here's the vicinity map. Here's Townsend Winona here to the south. Coming up from Loop on the east side, this is the subject property, this sort of split zone parcel here. And here's a zoom in of the subject property. You can see, actually I want to go back real quick because we're basically surrounded by Coconino National Forest here, except for an AR 2.5 parcel here to the north and here to the south. Those are developed with single family residences. We have MR zone a little bit over to the east in view of this parcel. That's mineral resource, and it's a cinder mine right there. So here's the subject property. You can see the split zoning here where the majority of the parcel is in AR 2.5. We do have this section over here with AR 5 zone. We have what are going to be two exceptions to this subdivision. They are basically the previous owner's family's parcels, so they won't be a part of this. We do have access coming in here from Loop over Forest Service Road here. And also we have Forest Service Road for Copley Drive coming through to the south there. I did want to show you, and I'll get into this more on another slide here, but we do have a channel here for floodplain, and this is FEMA's Zone A, so it's an approximation of where the flood zone exists. You can see that there's not much vegetation on the parcel. There's a little bit here where there's some more elevation, and a little bit over on this side, but a more or less flat meadowy type area through the middle of the parcel. So here is a topographic map of the plat. So you can see this has steep slopes in two different colors. Between 15 and 25% slope is in the red color, and in the purple color is over 25%. So most of that is corresponding to where we have a channel for floodplain here. We also have, there's a tank here that was part of a ranching operation that was formerly conducted on the property. We have a little bit of steep slope here on these parcels here. The applicant has the lots where there is steep slope and where there is floodplain have created building envelopes where building would only be allowed in the envelopes to protect the steep slopes and floodplain. Here's a photo of the subject property from the middle, and you can see there are a number of prairie dog mounds. These were observed so all throughout the property, but especially through the middle. And here is a photo taken from the northernmost point of the proposed subdivision, the subject property. Looking south, you can see this is a deep channel here, and also you can see the cinder mine operation in the back. So this proposed development is 50 lots that would be meeting the current zoning. So again, mostly the AR 2.5 zone, some of the AR 5 on the east. We have the building envelopes on lots that are affected by floodplain and steep slope, as shown in those screens before. The subdivision would be serviced by Donny Park Water for water service, and there is a will serve letter in the packet. There would be individual on-site wastewater septic systems on each parcel or each lot. And this parcel is completely within the Summit Fire District, so they would be there to respond to any emergency or fire situation. No waivers of the typical standards for a subdivision of this sort are requested with this. And we do have in the proposed CNRs requirements for fire prevention measures and noxious and invasive weed removal for prospective buyers. We also have 2 ingress egress points that are proposed for the subdivision, as is required for subdivisions with that are over 30 lots. For the roadways proposed for the subdivision, they would be HOA maintained and therefore would meet the private road standards. They would be within 60-foot and 40-foot wide easements, 24-foot paved roadway with 2 12-feet paved lanes. The primary access would come in from Loop within the existing 60-foot easement over Forest Service property. And emergency access is proposed from Copley Drive down to Towns and Winona on the south side of the property. So the staff report mentioned that Copley Drive would be taken back up north and west to Loop Road. So this is actually a correction that it would actually be taken down towards Towns and Winona Road. So staff is recommending a change in condition number 7 to reflect that the emergency access would come down south to Towns of Winona rather than north to Loop. Right here, I did want to describe, so the floodplain that you saw on one of the aerials is a FEMA approximation. So that's what we see here in the pink color. In the blue is where the applicant has done a study, and they will be proposing to FEMA a change to, or basically a more accurate 100-year floodplain that should be inside of this blue area here. So there is a condition recommended in the staff report that the applicant finish that process. It's called a LOMAR, or a letter of map revision, prior to submitting for the final plat, so that we know that the building envelopes on the affected lots here are actually keeping development outside of what would be the more accurate floodplain depiction that the applicant has shown here in the blue teal color. Just wanted to go over the plat a little bit further. So here's the 60-foot access coming in from Forest Service. That's already an easement. 60 feet wide is the easement all the way through. This is Meadows Drive, I believe, to a cul-de-sac here. The little offshoot roads here are proposed at 40-foot wide, but still the 24-foot pavement with 2 12-foot travel lanes. I wanted to show here in this little bubble areas where the existing AR5 zoning is. So these would be 5-acre lots. The rest would be at least 2.5 acres to meet the existing zoning. And I put asterisks here for all of the lots that are affected by floodplain and steep slopes. So you can see it's quite a few of them. And then we have our other Forest Service, our emergency exit coming through on the south end of the proposed plat here. For a little bit more detail on the Forest Service accesses, so the main access already has the existing 60-foot easement, so that's up here. And so all that needs to happen there is for the applicants to change the dedication of the easement to the current owner of the property, to the HOA, and maintain it. That's all that the Forest Service requires for that situation. For the emergency access, Copley Drive is open to the public, so anybody can basically use it. The applicant's free to use it for their access, but they would be required to get permits for any improvements to the road. And also it does go through private property down here to the south. So the applicant will need to show that they have the legal right to use the easements as they come through private property. So staff, there is a condition there that the Forest Service would have to make the approvals of the road, and the improvements would need to meet the requirements of our Public Works Division, Engineering Division, the Public Works Department, and Summit Fire would need to make sure that this road is capable of being used as an emergency access. As far as wildlife, there is an existing 4-strand barbed wire fence that completely surrounds the property. The applicant is willing and has proposed to retrofit the entirety of the fencing surrounding the property with wildlife friendly fencing. And here's a detail shown here. I did want to turn it over really quickly to Jessica Simmons, the urban wildlife planner, because we have a condition about the prairie dogs. There are many observed on the property. Jessica has recommended that we make a slight modification to what's recommended in condition 14 regarding the prairie dogs. So Jessica, if you could speak to that really quickly.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Good evening, commissioners. So I visited the property along with a couple other planners, and we drove over pretty much the whole parcel, and there was nowhere we went where we didn't see prairie dog burrows everywhere we looked. I would say we did not perform a formal survey, but I would guess that there were a minimum of in the neighborhood of 200 to 300 burrows. And they say that each animal has about two burrows per animal. So about half that number of animals at a minimum. And after talking to some folks who are really familiar with prairie dogs and translocation and those kind of things, we think that no matter what, prairie dogs are going to persist on this parcel. even if theoretically we could remove every single prairie dog within the parcel boundaries, there are adjacent areas that are populated with prairie dogs that could move in. And even if those areas were emptied, young male prairie dogs can travel up to 2 kilometers to search for new areas. And apparently this is very good prairie dog habitat. So the homeowners on these parcels would likely be dealing with prairie dogs almost no matter what we did. So the idea we came up with was, so Gunnison's prairie dogs are declining quite a bit. They've lost probably 90% of their occupied range in the last 100 years. And they're not federally listed at this point, but they've been proposed. And so what we put in this condition was for the applicants to translocate about 100 animals to a new location, which would be away from any possibility of development. There are programs trying to reintroduce black-footed ferrets that need prairie dogs, and they are in places like national parks where they would not be in danger of being developed on. So in that way, if a big group of animals was moved, and 100 animals is a very good size, you need to have a minimum number of animals since they're very social to be able to be successful and reproduce. And 100 would be a really good number. That would be very likely, have a high chance of success of reproducing. That way, the overall number of Gunnison's prairie dogs would hopefully not decline because this new group would be moved to a new area. And then we would let the remaining animals just deal with the development as they can. And because these are big lots, there would probably be a lot of still undeveloped area that would still have prairie dogs on them. And another note in this condition is that we said that the translocation must happen in July or August. And after speaking with some prairie dog translocation experts, I was told that July and August is the best time because that's right after the animals have had their babies, but the babies have had time to become old enough to survive the translocation well, but also before they go into hibernation in the fall.
Okay, Ms. Simmons, thanks for that. That's a really thorough explanation of the wildlife for the prairie dogs issue. So moving on, as far as long-range plan conformance, we have 2 long-range plans that are effective for this area, the comprehensive plan and the Donny Park Timberline Fernwood Area Plan. The comprehensive plan has 9 relevant policies in the natural environment element related to preserving wildlife corridors, location of development outside of floodplains, mitigation of impact to sensitive species, etc. So those I believe are met by this request. There are 2 relevant policies of the water resources element related to protection of floodplains. As far as public safety elements, there are 2 relevant policies related to access in general to emergency services and having 2 ingress-egress points for development. And there are other goals and policies that are in the staff report, and I'm happy to elaborate on those if the commission has questions, but they basically reinforce all those values above. The Donny Park Timberline Fernwood Area Plan has policies that state that development should remain as large lots with rural character, that development should occur at existing zoning densities, and that the developer should provide for offsite improvements for proposed subdivisions. So staff believes that this request is in conformance with the long-range plans. As far as citizen participation, the legal noticing area for this case was 1,000 feet. And so property owners within that radius were invited to a meeting held by the applicant on April 9th to list any concerns that they had about the project. 2 neighbors attended, 1 was in support and 1 had concerns about density and dark skies preservation. And staff's response to that is that the density already exists for the minimum zoning there. We're not asking for a zone change for any higher density. And also that the dark skies will be preserved through the zoning ordinance section 4.3 lighting requirements, the dark skies requirements. The commission is aware that there are 5 findings of fact that need to be made for approval of a subdivision. The first is that the proposed subdivision conforms to the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan and its amendments, like the area plan. 2 is that the design of the proposed subdivision will not cause substantial environmental damage and will not present serious public health problems. 3 is that the site of the proposed subdivision is physically suitable for the proposed type and density of development. 4 is that the proposed subdivision is consistent with provisions and intent of zoning regulations applicable to the property. And 5 is that the proposed subdivision conforms to the improvement and design standards set forth in the subdivision ordinance. So staff is able to make all those required findings of fact. Those are outlined in the staff report. And if the commission has any questions on that, I'm happy to answer those. But for now, staff proposes that the commission recommend approval of case SUB 21010 to the Board of Supervisors with proposed conditions as modified in the presentations. And those are conditions 7 and 14 as modified on the screen for you here. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the commission.
Okay, Mr. Schwartz, I am not seeing anyone's hand raised or anyone unmuting. So I'm going to go ahead and ask if the applicant or the applicant's representative would like to address the commission.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. And could you please state your name and address for the record? And also, I would like to ask if you have read the staff report and if you agree with the conditions listed in there.
Thank you. This is Ian Braun with CD&E. I am the applicant's engineer. They're here with me in the office in case you have any questions for them. My address is 618 East Route 66, 86001. We had a chance to read the staff report. We had a great time working with staff and working with Zach on this project, and are in agreement with all the conditions, and we will limit our comments to that, but are available if you have questions.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant or the applicant's representative by any of the commissioners? Okay, and I am not seeing any. So I'm going to ask if there is anyone in the public that wishes to address the commission on this case tonight.
Yes, my name is Ken Sperber. Karen Harris and I own the property at 6825 Loop Road. We participated in the neighborhood community meeting, and we were the dissenting neighbor on the development of this property. We moved to this area with the goal of building an observatory to observe and image the night sky, as well as enjoy the beautiful scenic area. And so that was the cause of our dissent on this development. That being said, I read the document that was online, and let's see, on page 37 of the document, it discusses the outdoor lighting in very general terms, basically concluding it is recommended that fully shielded lighting be used in the subdivision and lighting be limited to the greatest extent possible for enjoyment of subdivision residents. I'm thankful that that is in there. From the neighborhood community meeting, there was a statement in there by the developer or the owners that proposed lighting for the subdivision is dark sky compliant, with the only lit signage being the entry sign, and that street lights are not proposed as part of this subdivision. I would just like to confirm that is still the case, that no street lights are proposed.
Mr. Schwartz, that is the case, correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, there was no street lighting involved with the application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schwartz. And thank you for your.
Madam Chair, I think you've muted yourself on accident.
Yes, yes, I did, Mr. Schwartz. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Schwartz, for the explanation. And Mr. Sperber, does that answer your question? And do you have any further comments?
I'm sorry, but it seems that the volume dropped out and I did not hear the response of Mr. Schwartz. I apologize.
Okay, I can tell you his response is that there are no streetlights proposed with this development.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Sperber, for joining the meeting. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to address the commission on this case? Okay, I am not seeing any, and I would like to go back to Ian Braun and Mike Palmer. Mr. Braun, you stated your address, but could I also get the address of Mr. Palmer since he is participating in this meeting this evening?
I apologize. That's actually from the last time I was in a hearing. So I'm joined by Lee Carr and Wallace Baird, and if you would like their addresses, they can give them to you now.
Yes, if we could please get those on the record, so we do have a complete record of participants. So go ahead. Let's have one of them go first. State the name, state the address, followed by the second.
This is Lee Carr. My address is P.O. Box 2125, Flagstaff, Arizona 86003.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carr. And the next one.
Yes, thank you. My name is Wallace Baird. My address is 2021 West Alaska Avenue, Flagstaff, Arizona 86001. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, I am not seeing anyone else in the public that wishes to address the commission. So I'm going to go ahead and close it to public, open it up for commission discussion. And Commissioner Williams, if you would like to start, please.
Sure. I have just a few things. First, I applaud the change to condition number 14 about the prairie dogs. Commissioner Best and I had talked about this prior to this meeting, and he couldn't be here, and that will make both of us happy. So it seems like there's one, in reading the CC&Rs for the subdivision concerning weed mitigation, the CC&Rs follow along with talking about pre-construction and post-construction weed control and reseeding. However, it doesn't address long-term monitoring, which is part of the zoning ordinance. So I'm wondering if maybe those can be adjusted, or like once the HOA is incorporated and running the show, then the HOA would be the likely entity to be responsible for long-term monitoring and control of noxious weeds. It just seems like that part was missing. So that was one concern, because otherwise the county's going to go out and check on it and have to check on 50 different properties.
Okay, Commissioner Williams, can you state the condition that the specific one that you're referring to?
Well, it's in the CC&Rs of the subdivision.
Okay.
Number 13, weed mitigation. And it talks about, prior to the start of construction, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that matches our zoning ordinance performance standards on weed mitigation. And then it addresses, pretty much the next thing, native species used to revegetate the area of invasive non-native species will be checked and certified, weed-free, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that kind of addresses the post-construction weed control and reseeding plan, but the long-term monitoring and control, which is the other part of the weed mitigation of our zoning ordinance, is not addressed in the CCNRs. And so I was just.
Okay, let me ask you
there was
this.
I mean, maybe there was a way that they could say the HOA will step up and monitor long-term weed control.
Okay, let me ask you this. What verbiage would you propose? Because this is something, and I'm going to be, boy, you know what? Before I go down this road, I'm going to back up because I don't want to go into an area where we don't belong.
Right.
But so I don't know if we're going there. So I'm actually going to ask Mr. McNeely if we can make suggestions to the applicant for verbiage in their HOA.
So, Madam Chair, this is Jess McNeely with staff. Absolutely, that's something that's reviewable, certainly within the county standards, as Commissioner Williams pointed out. Within our zoning ordinance and our subdivision ordinance, we address weed mitigation. So, if there's concern with the continued on monitoring of that, that's certainly something that could be discussed with the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McNeely. Okay, now Commissioner Williams, we can go down this road. That's what I was checking to see.
I mean, I was just hoping that in there, you know, with this brought to their attention, their CCNRs might transfer that long-term monitoring to the HOA at the appropriate time.
Gotcha. Okay, and I see Mr. Schwartz with his hand raised. I think you probably have something to say that would be important here.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Commissioner Williams, for expressing your concern on this issue. It's definitely an issue that staff is concerned about as well. And I also thank you for getting comments from Commissioner Best and bringing them here before us tonight. So the conditions related to pre-construction and post-construction weed control and reseeding plans, that is part of the zoning ordinance. So we do have a preliminary plat that gets approved by the commission and then the Board of Supervisors. Then the applicant does construction or bonding, and then we go for the final plat. And staff's idea was to condition these things, even though they're in the zoning ordinance and it's a requirement anyway, just as a heads up to the applicant, was to go through, make a condition for the preliminary plat for the pre-construction and post-construction, and on the final plat conditions to have the long-term monitoring plan condition there. So it was something that was considered by staff, and I think it's an option to definitely, you know, include those in the CCNRs, but it is a requirement of the zoning ordinance anyway, and staff was going to condition them on the final plat. So I don't know if that helps or not.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that pretty much covers that. So thank you for that. And then my only other comment, well, I do have two other things, but I'm wondering about, there doesn't seem to be, you know, a lot of these subdivisions, we have some sort of a trail system incorporated in them so that residents can either, you know, safely walk their dogs, or, I mean, some of them even are incorporated into bridle paths, ride their horses when the National Forest is closed, or interior lots have some legal access out to the National Forest without having to just drive or walk out the main road. And I don't see any sort of any trail amenities in this, and I'm just wondering if the applicant had thought about that. You know, it seems to me like a perimeter trail would be awesome for people to walk their dogs or ride their horses, and it seems like the forest closes every year these days. It's the new normal, and it certainly would give people somewhere to go safely. That's non-motorized, and it would make those interior lots certainly, I think, more desirable if they had a way to access the forest, at least maybe a couple access points, or if the Forest Service has something to say about that, but so that was just something that popped out to me, is that there really isn't any sort of internal trail or access system. So I was just wondering if the applicant had thought about that and thrown that idea out, or that maybe hasn't come up yet.
Oh, Commissioner, I'm sorry, Commissioner Williams, did that conclude your comments?
Well, I guess that concluded my comments, and maybe that, somebody will have a chance to respond to that, but I think it would make it personally a lot better development.
Okay,
and then my other last question, I probably should have asked this of Zach when he was up with the findings. Zach, can you pull up finding number 4 for the subdivision? Is that possible?
Sorry, Commissioner Williams, I'm having trouble working with this. I'll get it up in just a moment
Okay.
here.
I'm having trouble remembering where it was or what it was exactly, but I did see it.
I will have it up shortly.
I can read it. It says that the proposed subdivision is consistent with provisions and intent of zoning regulations applicable to the property.
Okay, so then my other just little question was, I noticed that there is a large lack of livestock, which is near and dear to my heart in these rural areas. And it seems like every other 2.5 or larger bit of acreage in the county, you can have livestock. And I'm just wondering, does this finding relate to that? Or is this because or is it something completely different? Does it not relate to that?
Yeah, Mr. Schwartz, if you
is consistent with livestock.
So I'm not sure if I understand the question. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner Williams. The zoning does allow for livestock, the agricultural residential zone. For this zone, you can have 3 on the first acre and 1 for every half acre after that. So it would be allowed, barring if there was anything in the HOA, CCNRs that I missed that would preclude
Right.
that.
It is actually in the CCNRs. It's on animals, number 10. No animals, livestock, poultry, or fowl of any kind other than a reasonable number of house pets, which shall not exceed 4, shall be maintained on or in any lot except 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, which are the 5-acre lots. So anyway, I was like, that's actually not consistent with the county zoning of those acreages.
Okay, I think I understand, Commissioner Williams, what you're asking. So I think the intent of this finding is that we're not allowing something that's otherwise disallowed in the zoning regulations. But the opposite side of it, being more restrictive, I don't think is something that's conflicting with that finding, is my understanding. And if the Assistant Director, Mr. McNeely, has anything to add to that, I'd welcome that.
Okay, that makes sense if that's the case. To me, it seemed like it was in conflict, but it might not be.
Okay, so Commissioner Williams, does that conclude your comments?
Yes, that concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you for those, Commissioner Williams. Those were good. Commissioner Burton?
I don't really have any additional comments. I think the modifications that were made, particularly from the wildlife planner, were very good suggestions. And I think with all those conditions in place, I wouldn't see a problem.
Okay, okay, thank you. Commissioner Clifford?
I think it's a good project for the area. They're keeping the density of the lots where they're at. And if they do bring the 5-acre parcels in for a lot split, we have back to the Planning and Zoning Commission to add density. We have the opportunity to say no on that. And with the area plan that we're working on right now, keeping it at the 2.5 and the 5 acres is a good plan for the density that we're talking about.
Okay.
So I can make the findings to approve this.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Clifford. Commissioner Walters?
I can make the findings. I think it's a good subdivision. I can recommend approval on this. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ruggles?
Let's see, I think that my point of view is pretty well summed up by Commissioner Walters and Commissioner Clifford. One thing I would like to address is the concerns that Mr. Sperber has expressed. And I have to say, unfortunately, that is a result of the existing area plan. I went over that very, very thoroughly before the meeting. And the area plan as it exists right now very simply addresses the fact that the residents would like to see zone 2 lighting apply to planned residential development and commercial development. Otherwise, it is area, or it is zone 3 in the lighting ordinance. So that's a lot less control. I would like to say that it is unfortunate that Mr. Sperber has noted the fact that it may be a problem for a backyard observatory, which I know it can be, but we are addressing that as we go forward. I know that doesn't help much, but nevertheless, I look at that as somewhat of a failing in the existing area plan. It is unfortunate, and it's one of the things I'm certainly going to address as we go forward. But residential lighting, you have the opportunity to address any problems with light trespass that may occur. We do take that quite seriously, and we have a position for enforcement of that is shared by both the county and the city. And it's just one person, but nevertheless, it is taken seriously and it is being addressed. So other than that, I think this is a very good plan, and I can certainly make the findings for approval of the subdivision go forward.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. Commissioner Williams, I want to come back to you and ask you if you feel that you have all of the answers to all of your questions and concerns, because I want every commissioner to have all their questions answered, concerns expressed. And do you want to ask the applicant any questions? Do you want to ask staff any further questions before we move to a vote?
No, I think the modifications made to condition 14 are great. I'm satisfied that finding number 4, that the CC&Rs are not in conflict with that. So that's good to know. And I feel good that the long-term weed mitigation will be handled by the HOA moving forward. So those were my 3 concerns, and I'm satisfied that those were answered.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure before we moved on that there wasn't anything lingering that you felt wasn't addressed. So are you comfortable moving forward?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Williams. I appreciate your comments and concerns. This is Chair Ontiveros, and I I think that this is a good project. I very much concur with Commissioner Clifford's comments that, if this moves forward, the commission is going to have a chance to review things as things begin to grow, if they in fact do. I think this is a good project, and I can make the findings to approve it. With that said, I would like to have a motion and a second, please. So, could I have a commission? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve PZ-SUB-21-010 with the conditions outlined by staff.
I'll second.
Okay, all right. I have a motion by Commissioner Williams and a second by, I think it was Commissioner Clifford that got in there first, to make a motion that we recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors for SUB 21-010. All of those in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Williams?
Aye, and I just wanted to add with the modification of condition 14, which.
Oh, you know what? We need to go back, because actually it was not just condition 14, it was also condition 7. All right, Mr. McNeely, help me out here. We need to modify that motion.
As
Yeah,
modified.
thank you, Madam Chair. And Zach, feel free to jump in as well. And Zach has them up on the screen there. So the motion modification can simply be that conditions number 7 and 14 are modified as proposed by staff in their presentation.
Okay, very well. Okay, so I have a motion by Commissioner Williams that we make a recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors for SUB 21-010 with the recommendations to conditions number 7 and 14 as presented by staff. I have a second by Commissioner Clifford. All of those in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Burton?
Aye.
Commissioner Clifford?
Aye.
Commissioner Walters?
Aye.
Commissioner Ruggles?
Aye.
And this is Chair Ontiveros, and I also vote aye. So it is unanimous that the recommendation of approval go to the Board of Supervisors for this project. The next item on the agenda is call to the public for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to address the commission this evening for items not on the agenda? Okay, I am not seeing any. The final item is the continuation of study session if necessary. And Mr. McNeely, if you could pick up on the Board of Supervisors update, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will pull up my agenda again here and share that on screen. Okay, so Madam Chair, if you guys are now seeing your study session agenda again, I believe we made it up through item 5 of the Community Development Department update. That would take us up to the Board of Supervisors update. Just letting you all know that the board is taking their annual break as they normally do next month in July. On August 10th, myself and Jay and Melissa will be back in front of the Board of Supervisors for a work session, just an overall educational work session on the development process, and then a long range planning update on the renewable energy ordinance, area plan updates. We'll still be working on the Donny Park Timberline Fernwood area plan at that point in time, and then giving them a work session on the regional plan update. So any questions on Board of Supervisor hearings or work sessions.
Yes, Jess, I have one that is relative to the Board of Supervisors. I'm kind of curious where the Happy Jack expansion case is or isn't
Yeah.
at this point.
So yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. So Chair Taveras and Commissioner Ruggles. That was continued. The Happy Jack expansion zone change was continued by the board some months ago. The applicant effectively asked that be continued to a date to be determined in the future. And the applicant is trying to get some work done in the meantime prior to going back to the board. So at the applicant's request, and by the way, we do charge them a continuance fee for the staff administrative time that goes into that. At the applicant's request, it's just to a date to be determined when the applicant has completed some of the improvements that they want to make in the area. Does that answer your question, Commissioner
Okay,
Ruggles?
yes, it does. Thank you for the update.
Absolutely. Okay, any other questions on Board of Supervisors update?
Yes, sir. Could you tell us what the status is on the other projects that were denied by the supervisors? The three being Two Guns, Newman Park, and the one there at Kachina Village.
Sure. Yeah, so thank you, Chair Taveras and Commissioner Vice Chair Walters. Let's see, Two Guns was of course denied, and we did have some questions from the applicant following that denial, but no continued action from the applicant. So we have not heard back from that applicant on the Two Guns case. On the Kachina, what we all referred to for several years as Kachina Village North, it actually was renamed to Kachina Highlands by the developer. Following the Kachina Highlands additional zone change request that was denied by the Board of Supervisors, the applicant completed their final plat for what the subdivision and zone change they had entitlements to. I believe that was with in an RS residential single family zone, and was essentially the 130 lots that they had entitlements to. So going back some number of years, there was approval in the Kachina Village North, now called Kachina Highlands, for 130 lots. In subdivision that we all saw, the applicant has gone back and completed their final plat and will move forward on the 130 lots. On the Newman Park zone change request to RC Resort Commercial, that of course was denied. The applicants did talk with staff some following that denial about what they could do to resubmit. Of course, the zoning ordinance limits resubmitting for the exact same thing for a year following a denial by the Board of Supervisors. So they couldn't ask for the exact same thing. They did discuss with staff some potential changes they could make, some substantial changes to their application, and go back before the Board of Supervisors sooner than the 1 year. It would actually go back completely through the entire process. It would come back to Planning and Zoning Commission as well. That is something they have explored. They did indicate to staff that that they would possibly seek other remedies. From beyond that, really, as community development staff, it's not really within our purview at this point in time to discuss what other issues that they were considering. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Walters?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Any other questions on Board of Supervisors update? All right. Well, on your commission and staff roundtable, the one item we put in here was we wanted to remind you that per your bylaws, the officer elections, annual officer elections for your commission are next month. So this is a great opportunity. Now we've got a little bit of time. I don't know, Chair Ontiveros, if you all wanted to discuss this, you certainly can. On what direction you all might go in the way of electing officers next month.
Yes, Mr. McNeely, we do want to address this now so we can be ready to move on this at the next meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there and see what the other commissioners think.
Well, I, for one, am good to go with the status quo.
I'll second
Okay,
that.
thanks. Okay, let me ask if there's anyone who is not. Okay, then let me ask Vice Chair Walters if you are willing to serve in the capacity of Vice Chair for another term.
Yes, ma'am. I'd be humbled to do so.
Okay, and I also would also fill the position of chairwoman if that's what you guys wish. And I also agree it's an honor, it's an honor to do that, and it's also a humbling experience as well. So that is something that is a position that I will fill again. And it sounds like Commissioner Walters is willing to do it. So if the status quo is what everybody wants, then I think that we're all willing participants and we can move in that direction at the next meeting. And I will just say thank you to the commissioners for your trust in my leadership. Thank you for that.
Okay.
And
Well,
Mr. McNeely,
Thank you, Chair
you can go
Ontiveros.
ahead.
Well, thank you,
Okay.
Tammy.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank
Yeah,
God.
I would like to say thank you also.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it. I really do. And Mr. McNeely, if you want to go ahead and hit the utility scale renewable energy ordinance study session, or maybe that's Ms. Shaw's.
absolutely. That would be Melissa with us. So thank you. That would be the last item on your study session agenda. And I know Melissa had a couple of things she wanted to run past you. And Melissa, I can stop sharing
Thank you.
my screen, so you are free to share and go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And I will share a short presentation. I promise we'll keep this pretty brief, but we did want to give you a couple of potentially interesting updates since you last heard about this. And if I can find my PowerPoint. And I don't think that that's shared correctly. Did this share appear? Did the PowerPoint appear?
Yep. We are not seeing a PowerPoint, Melissa. We're seeing your screen.
Okay.
We're looking at a great
Okay.
view of the Grand Canyon with some snow
Yep.
and a raven.
And a raven. Yep. Okay. That's not what I wanted. It's a nice picture, but not what I wanted to share. I'm having the same issue, I think, that Bob was having earlier. Did that share?
Yep, we've got it now.
Okay, great. Thanks. So thank you, commissioners, for once again entertaining an update about this renewable energy process. But we wanted to give you a quick update, and I will go to the full screen view here quickly. And we have had a couple meetings with our advisory committee since we last talked with you about this in May. And we've also heard from some biomass industry professionals who reviewed the draft and have some comments for us. So we just quickly wanted to review those with you. The comments from the biomass industry were pretty specific. And one of those comments was about in the draft, there's a requirement for what's called a preliminary emissions analysis. And their comment was that perhaps that should be tailored just to be from facilities that were located near to observatories. And to just jump right to the conclusion, the advisory group looked at that and talked about it, but in the end, and those are primarily based on some of the goals and policies in the comprehensive plan, essentially recommended that we leave it as currently written, in that any new biomass plant would be required to submit a preliminary emissions analysis, no matter where in the county they were sited. So that was how that comment was actually analyzed. Another comment from the industry was in regard to the audible noise proposal to limit audible noise to 50 dBA measured at the property line. And the comment from the industry was, well, perhaps that should be adjusted to be a noise limit when it was only adjacent to residential properties. But there was discussion that some of our industrial zones maybe currently don't have any development in it. And so limiting, or rather lifting, the audible noise limit from those may actually result in a additional noise that would not be acceptable over what other projects have been approved. So that was something, again, that was looked at and was a good comment. It's good to think about all these different perspectives. And in the end, they are recommending that audible noise limits still be left to apply to any zoning district. And then finally, one of their other their comments was in regard to the type of biomass facility. And we're learning that there are combustion or furnace type of biomass facilities where they actually burn the fuel to create steam, which then turns turbines. But there's also a conversion system, as they call them, that in some manner turns the fuel into essentially gas for fuel. So the suggestion was that the county might want to prefer the gasification type of units over the others. And again, to jump to the quick answer, or the quick conclusion here from the advisory committee, is that we simply did not have enough information about these different types of systems. So there was no, and the idea that one would be preferred over the other just seemed to be a bit premature. So there was no change in, or rather there was no change to the ordinance in that one type of biomass would be preferred over the other. So that's it in terms of the biomass comments. I could pause here and take any questions on this particular topic before I go on to a few other points that we want to raise.
Melissa, this is Vice Chair Walters. I've had a lot of engineering advice and stuff on the biomass operations and that kind of thing. And I've been following along with that with some of the industry professionals. And there's a lot of different options. So I agree that we should wait and see what develops, because it's a fairly new technology that people are working on. So I agree with you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
The other point of view that we wanted to bring to your attention is we did get comments from one of our energy developers. We have several who have been joining in the meetings with the advisory group. And in particular, one of the companies brought up the fact that there is definitely some uncertainty in the draft, and that revolves around how Native American tribes and the comments that we would get from those groups might impact their projects, as well as this idea of an energy advisory committee. And not to dwell too long on the Energy Advisory Committee, but that concept comes out of the Comprehensive Plan Appendix D, where it does specifically speak to the county creating an Energy Advisory Committee. In the end, the larger advisory group felt that the way the ordinance is written, where it does allow for a third-party technical review to help staff, and ultimately then that would help the commission understand any kind of technical issues, that actually would support and pretty well cover any need for an energy advisory committee. But that is something that we we wanted to bring to your attention as well, because it was specifically mentioned in the comprehensive plan. And we'll talk a bit more. I just have another slide or two in a bit about how we're trying to involve and reach out more consistently to Native American tribes and get comments from those nations on these large scale energy projects. The other comment that we received was from one of our rancher members, and they really are looking to the ordinance to make sure that it includes phrases such as current and traditional uses. So in other words, that in the preferred criteria and in the project descriptions, that the current and traditional land uses, that is ranching and hunting, for instance, on those ranch lands as a recreational use, that's carried through, and that those descriptions are complete in that they do describe what is occurring on those sites. Because remember, a lot of these large scale projects are being sited on the ranches, the ranch lands in the county. So that's something we've had some pretty good comments from our ranching community in terms of the draft. And then just finally on the preferred criteria, there's more discussion that needs to revolve around how the preferred criteria is written, and in particular, how the projects are visible or not visible from a visual resource. So this has been quite an interesting topic of discussion with the group, knowing that pretty much anywhere in the county, these projects will be visible. So how do we write a preferred criteria that essentially doesn't exclude sites from consideration? So that's a real important area that this group has been grappling with. So we do need to have more discussion around that. And then finally, we wanted to circle back to this idea of pre-cultural on-site survey, and that ties into involvement of Native American tribes and how to get comments from those nations early on in the process, so there aren't any surprises later on. And there is some interesting background. The Nature Conservancy is actually working on a large-scale Western energy study, and they contacted us because they have been doing some outreach to tribal communities, and basically have come up with this idea of holding pre-cultural on-site surveys, or if you would, a meeting. It's pretty much common sense. It's similar to our public participation requirements with the neighbors, only this would be specifically inviting Native American tribes to the site to talk about what it means to them and what they see. And in the Nature Conservancy's experience and in other projects, they have found that having that early consultation really can go a long way to eliminating any kind of unknown obstacles in the future or during the approval process. So it's a matter of just building relationships to avoid the later challenges and unexpected delays. So we've come up with an idea where we put together some kind of 4 points for initial tribal communication strategy. And that got some interesting discussion from our advisory group. Some of the advisory members want to explore this idea further, and they wanted to explore it further with you all, as well as with some other groups that are working to reach out to the Native American tribes. And then also some members felt that this was an area that we really should not get too far into. So this is pretty much the last topic that I wanted to introduce to you and find out if you have any thoughts on this. I know that I'm going pretty rapidly through these fairly big topics, but we felt that it was important to bring up.
Yeah, you know what, Michelle, let me ask you, okay, so you've got two kind of opposing views, reach out more or reaching out too much. Can you please state the reasons for each stand? The ones that want to reach out more, tell us why they want to, and the ones that feel that we may not should go, we may not want to go down this road. Can you please offer the explanation for their stand?
Sure, I will offer as best as I understand it as well. And the comprehensive plan is, obviously, our main guiding document for reaching out to the Native American nations. And that's really one of the primary impetus for contacting the tribes and getting early communication. I think there's an awareness and there's a sensitivity because these are such large scale projects, thousands and thousands of acres, that a lot of sites do have cultural meaning and cultural importance to Native American tribes. And I wanted to be inclusive and to understand what the impacts might be. And I think that's where that perspective is coming from. It's a real understanding and awareness of how important it is to our neighbors that way. The other side of the coin, though, are people that are, communities that value private property and, wanting to move forward on these projects as best they can. And, understanding that with a private property, then, that's something that as long as a project would meet all of the findings for a conditional use permit, knowing, however, that we do need to look at comprehensive plan goals and policies through those conditional use permits. I think there's also some degree of uncertainty, and that's a bit of a, there's a fear that the uncertainty could actually then impact a project's ability to be approved. I know Jess has heard some of these comments as well. So if you've got anything to add, Jess, please do.
Michelle, let me
Melissa, I
ask
think you got it.
Okay, and Michelle, let me ask you this. The comprehensive plan is the guiding document. And if left as is, then that would address the individuals who kind of oppose going in a different direction. Am I correct with that?
I think it would. We do need to look at all the goals and policies. These are conditional use permits, and so those would be brought up during a hearing, correct?
Right. And so if we left it as it was, if I'm understanding you correctly, the comprehensive plan also already addresses reaching out and including the tribal communities, correct?
It does. And with this communication strategy, we were looking at this as a pretty informal, just some suggestions for how to conduct outreach. The idea of this on-site survey was something that we talked about possibly including in the ordinance, but that's another area of discussion, that whether or not that's a good idea. It seems like it's getting, as you mentioned, two very different perspectives.
Yeah.
This is fairly common sense. Our State Historic Preservation Office offers a tool that shows, based on a project location, what tribes might be most interested in it. Hosting an on-site meeting early in the process, it also seems to be pretty much common sense, making the personal contact and then, letting the county know what has come out of those meetings. Just some simple strategies for how to conduct outreach was the motivation here, but it has been interesting to get feedback on this.
Okay, let me ask you this. Are there policies already there in place without making a new one that already address those concerns?
They're more general. There are policies that talk about coordinating but they're more general. This would be more of a just a suggestion. I don't think that we anticipated making this any kind of policy.
Okay.
It could just be a toolbox, if you would, for how to do some outreach. We did write in this draft that the county would want to see a summary of cultural and archaeological early surveys, some quote desktop evaluations, so that we knew, if had been any previous studies, for instance, conducted on site, then that could give us some indication if there were important cultural sites on a project. What it wouldn't tell us though, is if there are some, undocumented importance to the tribes. And that's where this idea came up. And again, the Nature Conservancy kind of use this idea of a pre-cultural on-site survey. That might not be the right term. It's more along the lines of a public participation meeting, specifically inviting Native American tribes. So these are just some concepts that have come up in the discussion of these projects, because these are probably the largest landscape scale projects that the county will need to make decisions about. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, interesting. Okay, and keep going.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wait,
in terms of
I see Commissioner Ruggles though. He's unmuted.
Yes, and I was just going to concur with what Melissa has told you. And I think I can add a little bit to that in terms of what I was thinking about when we were discussing this. Just think back to some of the difficulties that we had to deal with just the real location of a cell tower at Twin Arrows. And that's where the communication part really rang a bell with me. And knowing that you need to start early with that is really important in my book, because in a case like that, which is nowhere near the import, well, it is important, yes, but nothing as large scale as this that we're talking about. That communication, if it's early and sincere, could make things run a lot more smoothly. And I think some of the folks who are in the industry who raised questions about this, well, they're not living in an area like Arizona or other areas to the west, where Native American tribes, they need to have their point of view considered quite thoroughly.
Actually, Commissioner Ruggles, that was a great example because I clearly remember the Twin Arrows cell tower. And you're right, they're going to communicate. You know what I mean? The tribes, I learned from that, the tribes are going to communicate one way or the other. And with that, some of that came in later, and it would have been much handier if it would have come in earlier. So I definitely see the point that you're making there, and that the example that you're giving of that one. Okay.
Yeah, it all comes back to we have to live together in the same place.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. Okay, Ms. Shaw, go ahead and continue on.
Thank you. That's pretty much covers the update that we wanted to bring to you in terms of where the project is and how we're going to go forward. Then, as just mentioned, we have an August 10th work session with the Board of Supervisors. Prior to that, though, we do anticipate getting together with the advisory group again in July and working on the issues that we just brought up in terms of the communication with Native American tribes, how to address preferred criteria in relation to visual resources, as well as continuing to work with the ranchers to make sure that their input is heard during this early process before we move on to public hearings. So, we feel that we're moving toward the end of the advisory group process and may be able to move into public open houses, possibly in the fall, and then after that, possibly into public hearings. So that's pretty much what we wanted to bring to you tonight. Be happy to answer any questions.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry about that, you guys. My mouse quit working on me, and I wasn't able to unmute. So that's why I was kind of out for a little bit. I love this technology. Do any of the other commissioners have any questions for Ms. Shaw regarding this? Okay, I'm not seeing any, Ms. Shaw, and I think, thank you very much though for that update. That's good. I think though with that, I think that concludes our meeting, and my clock shows 7:19 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned. So good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good
Good night.
night.
Thanks, everyone, and good night.